I'm on the quest for a programming language that I really like to write for most things. I have quite a few languages that I enjoy writing, but I really want a language that I can just kind of default to. And right now, that's probably Go, maybe Zig. But the thing is that I would like to have something in the scripting category, and I don't really have anything in the scripting category. I could use TypeScript, and it's a good option for me as well, especially with my experience with the language. But I really, really hate exceptions. So I was trying to find something where I can model error states and not have to worry about exceptions. And there's actually quite a few great libraries in TypeScript for doing that. Maybe we'll talk about them at some point as I've been exploring them a little bit more and more. But today I actually wanted to talk about Fsharp. So Fsharp's an interesting language. It's built on .NET. It is overshadowed by C# tremendously, although Fsharp tends to get new features first, and then C# cannibalizes the ones that work really well, at least for C#. It's a really interesting language. We did a video on OCaml a couple days ago, actually like a week and a half ago at this point, and it makes me want to try more Fsharp. So just for a little bit of background, I don't know OCaml very well. I know Fsharp a little bit better. And they're both what we would call MLs, or meta languages. I believe that's what the M stands for, is meta language. My first experience with the meta language was in college. We used a language called PolyML, and it was one of the hardest programming languages I had ever used, but it taught me so much. And I think you can learn a lot from it, whether you use it as a day-to-day driver or not. So I'm going to play around with Fsharp, and we're going to build like a tiny, tiny Markdown parser, because I think it showcases some of the stuff that Fsharp is really good at. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So I'm on a Mac. Surprise, surprise. You can use Fsharp if you're on a Mac with the .NET runtime, or Mono if Mono is still around. I'm not sure, but I would just use the .NET runtime. So yeah, you can run .NET version if you don't have it installed yet. We can also use .NET new console lang Fsharp. And then we need to give it a name. So I'm just going to call this Markdown to HTML. Let this run. Template console app was created successfully. That's great. So let's take a look at what we've got. So we've got an Fsharp project. We've got program FS, and we've got an object folder. So let's take a look inside the object folder, and you can see that there's some stuff that mentions NuGet. NuGet is the package manager that is used. There's some project assets. We won't really need to get into this folder, but I just wanted to call it out because it's a little weird that you have a folder called OBJ and it's not immediately clear what it is. Let's take a look at program FS. So you can see for more information, there's a link, and then print FN hello from Fsharp. Beautiful, simple, concise. So let's get started, right? So before we do, you can run .NET help if you are ever curious what your options are. And then for posterity's sake, we should probably run .NET run and make sure that this project actually runs. It does. Hello from Fsharp. Excellent. Things are going great. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a... I kind of want to break this apart into files so you can see how modules work. So let's start there. So we're going to do a new file called markdown.fs. And we're going to give this a module. It's going to be module markdown. I actually don't have Fsharp syntax highlighting. Let me see if I could get something here that might be helpful. Okay, we're going to take a slight detour because I feel like syntax highlighting will make this nicer. So ignore the giant Zig project on the screen, and what we're going to do is create a new window here. We're going to open, make this nice and big for you, close the Copilot crud. Okay, great, we have syntax highlighting, perfect. Okay, so we've declared our module. We're going to create a type now. So a type is exactly what it sounds like. It is a structure of data. And they are extremely flexible, which you'll find out here in just a second. So I've got a Markdown element, and a Markdown element is going to be, wow, autocomplete is actually being very, very nice here. I don't think, let's see. Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to do all of these just for the sake of this video not taking too long. So we're going to remove like images. We'll remove links. We don't want to really do code blocks. Let's just do these. Okay, so we have this Markdown type, right? So how do we use that? So if we come back to our program.fs, up here at the top, we can open, and it suggests opening system. I think we'll need that, so we'll go ahead and open system. We can also set up an entry point. We'll get to that in a minute. Copilot's being a little aggressively helpful, but we can also open Markdown, and Markdown is our Markdown module that we've created. So we can, from here, we can start defining functions. So functions, things are defined in Fsharp using the let keyword. So we can have a function called parseLine, and it would take in a line. That's going to be a string, and it will return like Markdown element option. And my wrapping is a little weird, so let's fix that so it's not so strange looking. Okay, so we can do something like, wow, Copilot is literally doing all the heavy work for us. Yeah, sure, okay. That's crazy. Okay, let's talk about what it wrote for me. So it recognized that if we have a single octothorpe right here, then we're working with a heading. The type of heading is an H1, and then it's trimming the first two characters, these two characters out here. So we have some heading, and then the type of heading is it's an H1, and then it's removing the first two characters because the first two characters are these, and we don't need that. And then it's trimming any extra spaces. Same thing here, just instead of it being an H1, it's an H2 because we have two octothorpes, and it's removing the first three characters because the first three characters are those. Rinse and repeat with the next one for H3s. It doesn't get any bigger than that for now, which is totally fine. You can see here if a line starts with asterisks and ends with asterisks, then it's some bold. Same with underscores for italics, and then same with the tildes for strike through. Otherwise, it's some paragraph. I think what I'm actually going to do for now is we will move these out. And the reason why is that these technically aren't line specific, so that might be a little aggressive on Copilot's decision making there. And instead, these are just text specific. So for example, you could have a heading that also includes strike through, and if we took this model, it wouldn't support that. So instead, what we want to do is probably something like else if. So elif string.is null or white space line, then none. I don't want all of this extra stuff, please. Please get out of here. Okay. So essentially, if it's null or there's white space, then we just have a none type here. You can tell from our option that we're working with here that this is either going to be something or nothing. So we have option types that we're working with, which include a value, or they include the absence of a value, which is really nice. So this is a function. We have a function that does some parsing, right? Some really basic parsing. So let's add another one called parse markdown. So this is going to take in lines, and it's going to be a string list. So what this is going to return then is a markdown element list. Yep. List.choose parse line. Wow, this Copilot is a little aggressive with some of its suggestions, but otherwise it is spot on. So this is cool. This shows one of my favorite things about Fsharp, which is this pipe operator. So what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, take lines and pipe that into list.choose with this function. So if we were to look at what list.choose does, I don't have any hover support, unfortunately, but list.choose takes in a function. In our case, it's this parseLine function. And specifically, it takes in a function that returns an option. This pipe operator says, hey, take everything to the right of the pipe and then take the value that's passed into it, so lines, and then place it right here. So same thing. This is the same as this. When is this useful, right? Maybe we wanted to pipe this into something else. So maybe we want to call list.choose and then we want to pipe something. And then we want to take that and maybe we want to pipe something else. So you can start to structure essentially a pipeline of operations that go sequentially one after the next, where the output of one is the input into the next one. And man, it is so nice to structure code like that. Okay, for now, we can just pipe lines into list.choose parse line. We're going to create another function here called render HTML, if I can type correctly. And it's going to take in an element, and that element's going to be a markdown element. The return type for this is going to be a string. And yeah, it's off to a really great start. So we are going to use the match keyword here to match an element with, and we are essentially matching on the type. So it's going to be a heading, and if it's a heading, we have a level and we have text. Remember H1 and then the stripping of the spaces and the substrings, right? So heading with level and text. So in this case, it'll be sprintf, which is a print formatting function, and it would be something like, yeah, that looks right. We'll do the same thing with paragraph, and we'll do the same thing with the unsupported option. We'll handle those later. So let's talk through this because this is a really cool pattern. So we're matching on an element, right? And if that element is a heading, we're destructuring these values from the heading, and then we're using them over here. So we have level, text, level. So we're just creating H1 with the text, closing H1 or something similar. Same with paragraph, but paragraph doesn't have levels. It just has one value called text. So we're destructuring the text from the paragraph type here, and then we are printing that. This is the catch-all case. So if this case is not handled up here, do what's over here. So essentially we have a type that we're trying to render that's maybe unsupported. So we have this entry point annotation defines an entry point into your program. If you want to do that, you can also do freestanding functions like this that are called that totally work fine as well. I'm going to remove them and I will stick with the entry point pattern. Mostly because it helps organize things a little bit better. So we have a function. This function is an entry point. I'm calling it main because it's, you know, it is our main function, and it takes in args or argv. So yeah, let's do some stuff. Let's create a variable, also using the let keyword. And this one's going to be, yeah, that's fine. Looks great. Copilot is being helpful. But essentially, I just want to take in some Markdown, right? And then we're going to create this, I'm going to call it an AST. It might be a little aggressive to call it an AST, but we're essentially parsing our Markdown, right, into those types, headings, paragraphs, etc. And then we can take that HTML, and then we can take that AST, pipe it into list map where we are rendering HTML. So we're essentially taking this render HTML function and then mapping it onto the AST type here, which is a list. And then we are taking the response from that, or the output from that, and then piping that into string concat with a line break being the separator. Hopefully that's clear. I've seen pipes for a very long time now, so it's very easy for me to see them. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't remember what I needed to hear to understand how pipes worked. So hopefully that's helpful. If not, let me know in the comments, and I will do a better job explaining it if I can. Okay, so finally we want to print the output to the console, and then we can return an integer exit code to determine how things are going. 0, because everything went just peachy. Okay, let's pop back over to our terminal and run .NET run. Okay, we have some errors. Let's fix those. Actually, we have quite a few errors. What did I miss? Program Fsharp, the namespace or module markdown is not defined. Oh, yes. How could I forget? So in our Fsharp project, this is when I start to like Fsharp slightly less, is when we get into like the .NET pieces. So in our Fsharp project, we need to add compile include markdown fs. Let's do that and give it another run. Bada bing, it works. Okay, so yeah, hang on. Let's wait for a second. We should appreciate this. This is darn cool, right? This is essentially a small markdown parser, or the start of a markdown parser with this type system. We actually have a couple of these left to implement. And 40 lines of code to take, markdown and convert it to HTML, which is like, that's awesome. One thing I didn't talk too much about here that I'm realizing now I should have. We have these markdown elements, right? So we have paragraph, which is it's of type string. We have heading, which is going to be an int and a string. And again, we can see how those are used over here, right? So we have that int and then that string for heading. For paragraph, we have just the text. So I just wanted to call that out. I think I kind of glossed over that, and that felt like something maybe not worth glossing over. We need to parse the inlines, right? Because this is cool, but we're just parsing the lines. We're not really thinking too much about the inlines themselves. So like the bolds, the italics, the strike throughs, that type of stuff. So let's just add another function up here called parse inline. And this is going to get text, and it's going to be a string. It's going to return a string. And what this is going to do is it's going to take text. This is not what I want. And it'll be a lambda function. So it's going to be fun s. Keep in mind that we're piping this into a function, right? So we're defining a function here on the fly. This will be system.text.regular. Yep, regular expressions. Is that right? It's probably good enough. So looking at the regex, I'm not positive. We can come back and clean that up if we need to. Should be the same thing here for italics. Should be the same thing here for strike through. Okay, cool. I'm going to trust Copilot on this one, and hopefully this is pretty accurate. So this will parse those and take care of converting that text to bold or italics. What's interesting is that we're not actually using the type, so we might not actually need to include the type here. Or maybe what would be better is if we were to change our parsing to also support parsing those types directly and then actually creating more of a true AST. I think this will probably be simpler for now, so especially since Copilot just wrote like half of it for me. But we'll go with this for now, and I feel like this is maybe taking a little longer than I can get credit for to talk about Fsharp. Attention spans might be waning at this point. Okay, regardless, so all we need to do to support this now is in our render HTML method where we're working with text. So here and here, we can just call this parse text, parse inline. So I can take this and wrap it in parens and call parse inline. And then same thing here, call parse inline. Just want to call out that what Copilot was suggesting also works, right? So Copilot just suggested I do this instead, which also works. I don't think this is particularly more readable in this case, so I'm going to keep it as parse inline text as opposed to text piping into parse inline, but you can do both. Okay, cool. I think that should be good. So let's take this and then run .NET run again. And we should see, actually, I don't think our test data includes any of that. Okay, so let's update our test data to include that, right? So this is a paragraph. So instead of paragraph, we'll say sentence, and then this should be a strike through. Yeah, something like that. So now if we run .NET run, See if our parsing works. Oh, I think, silly me. I think I need 2 of those. Looking at my regular expression up here, it does look like we need 2. I actually am kind of drawing a blank as to what is proper Markdown, so that might not be proper Markdown, but for the sake of what we're doing here, this is fine. Yeah, so you can see here we have our headings just like before, and then we have a paragraph, and then we have this, and then a bold is, close bold, a strike through, sentence, close strike through, paragraph. So we have Markdown parsing working. So don't get me wrong, there's plenty more that we can add to this, right? Like we're not handling unordered lists or ordered lists for that matter. There's plenty of other Markdown elements that we might want to add as well, but I still can't stress enough how freaking cool it is that we have 46 lines of code plus 8, so what, 54 lines of code that take a series of Markdown strings and convert them to markup. Yeah, this is clean, easy to read. There's some stuff that I don't particularly care for. Like this is really long, but we can shorten it. There are ways to shorten it. But yeah, this is just a really, really fun, expressive language with a really robust and powerful type system. And I don't think enough people know about it. So I wanted to make a video talking about it. I've been playing around with Fsharp more and more. Specifically, I've been looking at what interoperability with C# looks like, and it's pretty good. And the reason I call that out specifically is because if I were to put this as my daily driver language, I want to be able to use a lot of libraries that already exist. I don't want to necessarily have to write libraries for everything. Someone suggested Dart as my daily driver. I like Dart a lot, but there are so many missing libraries for things that I would need to build myself, and I don't know if I have the time to do that. So yeah, I'm rambling as I do. Anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. Try Fsharp. Give it a go. There are plenty of ways to try it online for free without installing .NET or any of that stuff too. I think you can use it on Code Wars. You can use it on Replit. There's plenty of ways to try it out and see if it's something that you might be interested in, because I did not expect to be interested in it, and I've joked that many times now since learning the basics of Fsharp. I'm definitely not an expert, but I've joked many times that if you were to find me in a .NET shop, I would be writing Fsharp, which means I'm, maybe not as employable as all the other C# devs in the Midwest, but that's not really a concern of mine at the moment. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That helps me, it helps the algorithm, and it keeps me happy. And when I'm happy, I hopefully produce better stuff for you, so it should keep you happy, and it's just a vicious, vicious, endless cycle. Besides that, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, so you don't miss out on any notifications. You can also ring the bell to make sure that that happens. And then finally, what more would you like to see? Do you want to see more Fsharp? Do you want to see more OCaml? Do you want to see more? You tell me. You're going to see a lot more Zig because I'm still zigging away, but I'm also exploring some other stuff. And if you want to steer the direction of my focus, this is your opportunity to do so. I think that's it. Thanks, and have a great day.